Welcome to the Intentional Leader Podcast presented by Reenergize Professional Coaching. We appreciate you listening in and learning with us. The stories and leadership tips you hear will help you become a great leader. Listen intentionally. Now, to our host, Sean Olson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Intentional Leader Podcast. This is the podcast where you hear stories of people just like you who become extraordinary leaders. You'll learn valuable tips from their lives, tips that you can apply to become the best leader you were created to be. When leaders are intentional, lives are changed. I'm your host, Sean Olson. I'm an author, speaker, business owner, and love being the host of this podcast. I would hope that all of you are listening today. Do us a favor as we get started today. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave us comments, and make all the worlds of algorithms happy. We greatly appreciate that. Today, I am blessed to have as our guest Leslie Gordon. You guys are in for a treat with her today. Leslie is a professional speaker and speaker coach with some special emphasis in her life around linguistics and accents. And so it'll be a great conversation. Leslie, welcome to the Intentional Leader Podcast.
Hi, Sean. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you. So I know you're familiar with the podcast and our listeners. And so every show we open up with our guests, just kind of walking through their professional career and even more importantly in that, leadership lessons learned along the way. And I'm looking forward to hearing this because it's rare you hear somebody say that they're a linguist. So how did this all start? What have you been learning in your career?
Yes, that's right. We're out there. We're out there and we're strong and we're proud, but yeah, it might not be something you run across every day. I have been fascinated with languages and accents and how human beings use speech and language to create meaning and connection for as long as I can remember. I know you've heard my keynote before, but it starts with me playing Barbie dolls who were speaking in different languages and languages that I invented because my young mind was working it out, and because I'd been exposed to languages. But that was the start of a path for me that I've been very consistent with. I am just a lifelong language nerd, and nothing makes me happier than to learn a new language and learn all of the cultural and social connections that come with it, the new worlds they open. And my career, that ultimately that took me to a career in academics. I had a university career for, gosh, all told, probably close to 20 years between different institutions and different roles, spending the last 12 years really split between administrative roles in higher administration, where my work cut across the university around university initiatives and special programs and so forth, and still keeping a foot in the teaching and research world around language acquisition and teaching and innovative learning and teaching. So I'm an old teacher at heart, but I have worked in the cog of the wheel that is higher education. And so that really, I would say, forms a large basis of my leadership experience and my background and some of my perspectives. I still bring a lot of that into what I do now, and it taught me a lot. Exposed, I know we'll get into this, but it exposed some of my own self-doubts and areas for growth. And through what I did and the way I grew, I found myself a few years ago ready to do a new thing that really aligns with my greater purpose, and that's back to speech and language and accent and making people more authentic communicators.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that background. So we have actually quite a few academics that listen in because our
Okay.
firm does a lot of work with academics and such. And so just talk for a little bit, help our listeners who have probably all participated in academia as students, but
hmm
haven't necessarily been on the inside with it. What
hmm
were like your two biggest leadership lessons learned from your academic years?
Mm. Two biggest lessons learned. I think the first is the value of this sounds like a simple statement, but there's so much underlying it, especially in an academic sense, or in the academic context. The value of leadership that builds the team. I had one of my earliest experiences, and actually the position that brought me into off of a tenure track role in academics, which is what I did after my PhD. I decided to sort of jump ship, as some would see it, and go straight into an administrative role where I was not on the tenure track. But again, I wanted that cross-cutting experience pretty quickly. I moved into a role under a leader who was someone with a very strong reputation, who was on his way and has since done great things. But he left that position early, and the replacement was someone who did not build a team well. And I learned, I mean, you've heard it said often by others, I'm sure you learn by learning what not to do. And at that early point in my career, I was seeing damage being done.
Yep.
And those were lessons to me. So the lesson became what not to do to build the strong team,
Mhm.
to be the leader that builds the team that allows individuals to grow and therefore allows the team to grow. And fortunately, after that experience, I made some moves even within the same organization, and I did get to see good leadership play out, leadership that invested in the individual and built them up
Mhm.
to do good things according to their strengths and talents.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful for those experiences, but it took that rocky start to make me realize there are people who do this well and there are people who don't do it well.
Yep.
And so it's those lessons stayed with me as well.
Yeah, but I like that story because I know a lot of people will have a negative leadership experience, right?
Hmm.
And because of that, they're like, I'm not going to follow leaders. I don't want to be a leader.
Right.
It's a horrible
Hmm.
situation. And so you
Hmm.
made a conscious choice to say, no, I don't want to follow that pattern, but I still want to make a difference. Is
Yes.
that just resolve that's inside of you? Was there somebody who was pushing you to navigate through that? How did you make the decision to say, I'm going to be a positive force out of this? I'm not going to just sit back?
I think it's some of both. I think it was largely driven by what I carry within me. It's a resolve to do good work, to follow my curiosity, to build my knowledge and my skills. I just had to do the work to find the right people
Mhm.
nurture that within me, and then in following the right voices, I looked for not only leaders that I would report to directly, and really became more intentional about looking as much at that when I looked at a job
Mhm.
application, right, or a job description, but also the people that would, just it's like I said before, the leaders that would ask me from the earliest moments, even in interview settings and on day one, well, you've got the expertise, what do you see happening here? Let's talk about your thoughts. And really, I was, just to use a colloquial expression, I was given the ball and allowed to run with it in my subsequent positions. And that's due, I think, to someone's recognition that Leslie's capable, she's curious, she wants to do good work. I'm going to let her step out and do it. And if she takes a misstep, I'll step in. And there were a couple of occasions where,
Mhm.
oh, maybe it wasn't so much a misstep, but you know, a step that would have delayed things,
Right.
or more to me, I guess, Leslie overthinking things. And someone needed to step in, that stronger leader needed to step in and guide me a little bit. But for the most part, the areas of growth for me came from the leaders who let me just get in there and do it. And
Yep.
that forms so much of a person's skill.
It does. It does. That's awesome. Giving people the freedom to make mistakes, but not
Mm-hmm.
leaving them in their mistakes, having the
Mm-hmm.
conversations and the debrief of, okay, what do you learn from this? What are you going to do again? What won't you do again? So,
Right.
yeah, so you've had those bad experiences, but you've also had great leaders to help come around you
Yes.
and push you to that next level. So you transition out of academia to do your own thing in speech. I know accent work is a huge thing for you. So just spend
Yes.
a couple of minutes and talk about the power of accents and the work you've done there.
Yes. So accents are like our fingerprints. We all have a unique sound, and it's formed in us early. We are the human speaker is a sponge from birth, and we absorb the sounds in our environments, and they become part of that imprint. and we carry them with us. We can change them, we can modify them, but there is such a connection between the way we speak and the experience we have in the world. It affects the way we think of ourselves. It affects the impressions we make, the way others think of us and see us. Sometimes that can be harmful, I suppose. There are
Mhm.
people who are unfairly judged or perceived to be other, less than, whatever, because of a difference in accent. That's the negative side of human behavior,
Yeah.
right? Humans are very good at othering. That's my favorite term for this type of thing. You're different than I am. You're different than I am. Accents are one way by which we make that judgment sometimes, but the flip side of that, and what I like to emphasize in my work, is that accents are a layer of your story.
Mhm.
And in the way you sound, there's representation there of the people who spoke to you to form the person you are, the culture that surrounded you as you became an independent, thriving human being. They are representative of so much beauty and so much good, and I think that they should be highlighted. And in times where there is a recognition on the part of the person to make an adjustment, it's work that has to be done with great respect and care. And you'll never hear me use the term accent reduction.
Mm.
I don't believe in
Right.
that word because it implies that something is being taken away from a person. I believe that we build up something new. We enhance an accent or we acquire a new one. And that work is work that can be done at any age, at any
Mhm.
stage, and again, with an emphasis on what is beautiful about the variation of human
Yep.
speech all around the world.
Yeah, I love that. I love your thought that you said early on there about an accent being a representation of their story,
Yes.
because this is one of the things we emphasize in leadership all the time when we're coaching executives is you have to know your people and know who they are, right?
Hmm.
Yes, they have a
Right.
responsibility, they have a job to do, but we lead people. So to know their story, to know their background, to know the richness of their accent, meaning what's behind it, how did
What's
that come
behind it?
out, and the
Yeah.
benefit of it. And so I like that aspect from a leadership side where we may oftentimes think, we want people to look, sound just like our organization.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, keep the diversity there.
Keep it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It is.
fantastic. So LeslieGordonSpeech.com, you have your own company now. I know you do a lot of
Yes.
public speaking, but what is Leslie Gordon Speech?
I like to say there are two doors to my shop, actually. I work with accent clients, like I just described, some people who want to make a change for whatever reason, personal, professional. That change could be to a very small degree, or there may be clients, and I've had several of these, who really want to blend in with their acquired language and culture. They want to pass as, someone who has always been there.
Yeah.
So there's a continuum there. I work with accented clients. I work on creative projects with actors who need to acquire an accent for a
Wow.
short term for a part. It's
Yeah.
actually a very the toolkit I would use for the two different clients is really the same. I just
Mhm.
use it slightly differently and maybe for different amounts of time or different degrees of intensity. So that's the one side. But the other side of my shop is for what I like to call the reluctant speaker.
Hmm.
So again, words you won't hear me say are weak or bad.
Mhm.
So even though clients will come to me and say I'm a really bad speaker or I'm a horrible public speaker or I'm a terrified speaker, first thing we do is reduce that terminology, remove that terminology. And I just like to cast it as what it is. It's a reluctance around speaking, and it's formed by factors in life, bad previous experiences, maybe bad leadership experiences where someone has repressed their voice, false narratives they've been told about their voice and its effectiveness or its importance.
Yeah.
There are a lot of reasons, but reluctant speakers come to me, and I have a model that has three essential elements, and I use this with
Mhm.
individual client coaching or I use it with group coaching. It doesn't matter. These are all consistent. The first is mindset towards speaking. What is going on in your head? What is the value you hold about your message and your communication skill, and the value you believe your message will bring to others? That's the essential bits of it. There's more to it, but that's mindset. The second very important element is breath and body.
Mm.
Our speech lives in our body, and a body that is in chaos or reduced by doubt or fear or what have you is not an open body. It's not ready to give energy. It's not ready to receive energy. So we work on the body so that you can have that physical, energetic presence that really is what people receive when they receive good communication.
Right.
And then the third element is what people probably think of most when they think of speech coaching, which is rate of speaking, pacing, clarity of pronunciation, things like that. Those are all very important to the speech signal, but they have to be layered on top of the two other foundational elements to really create the authenticity and the effectiveness in the communication
Great.
as a whole. So I believe that's my model of aligned speaking, those three things
Yeah.
coming together and being within the control of the speaker so that the speaker doesn't feel controlled by external factors.
I
They
love
are the
that.
one in control.
Yeah. I love all three of those. I like that you started out with the mindset piece.
Mhm.
And I think back, we had a guest on the podcast about a year ago, Sean Tyler Foley, and he had a book, and I can't remember the exact title of the book, but basically it's like The Power to Speak Naked. And his
Oh,
point
wow.
behind this, because this goes to the mindset piece with so many people in speaking, is people say that they are afraid of public speaking.
Mhm.
And the point that he drew out was, no, you're not. You speak in public every day.
Yes, that's
If
right.
you order food from a server, you're speaking in public.
That's public speaking.
Whatever you're
Mhm.
doing, he said, we're actually afraid when we think of a stage, or be that stage, a boardroom of four people that are on your
That's right.
team, right? It
That's
could
right.
be your team. We're
Yes.
afraid of public judgment.
That's it.
We're not afraid of
That's it.
speaking. It's the judgment. It's the mindset. So go one
That's
layer
right.
deeper on that first element of mindset. If you're sitting
Yeah.
down with someone who's just like shaking from what they view as stage fright, but it's the mindset,
Mhm.
how do you work with
Mhm.
them?
Yeah, and I'll add one thing to what you just said. It's absolutely right. You're afraid of judgment. I explain that to my clients and my class participant says that is performative speaking. You're worried about your performance, right? Because
Yeah.
you're worried about judgment. What is the audience thinking? And also that public means literally means of the people. So if
Mm.
you're speaking to one person, it's public speaking. So, you're right. All that is just to support what you said. It's really the fear of judgment. But the way I begin to work with someone who's just racked with that fear and self doubt is we do a deep exploration of mindset around, and you'll love this part because I really do use this word in my coaching. What is your intention
Hmm.
in any given utterance? I mean, we can break it down to something as simple as when you say hello to someone, what is your intention? Because I can say
Mm.
hello to four different people today with four different intentions.
Absolutely.
So it's getting really clear, and this is where the linguistics stuff all comes into play because the pragmatic branch of linguistics explores questions just like this. Why are you even communicating, right? What's the effect you want to have on another person? And so we get clear on intention and how we align speech and tone and energy with that intention so that it's correctly received. And here's the magic thing that happens
Mhm.
when you get into your intention, you cannot help but to be thinking about the other person. And when you are other focused,
Mhm.
it opens you in a way that you would have never thought possible. You can't be thinking anymore, how am I performing? Because
Right.
you're thinking about how you're affecting someone.
Mhm.
And that is transformative.
It is.
So we do think about, yeah, value and intention, and there's also an element of we explore the growth mindset. Do you believe you have the
Mhm.
skill within you to make an impact with your communication? So all of those things are explored.
It is about them. I like that. So with our company, we do a lot of public speaking. We do workshops.
Hmm.
And I did not make this up, Leslie, but I don't know where it came from, but it's not mine. Uh, but I talk about three levels of speaking, like when they're leading a workshop and stuff. Level one is your content centric, right? Like I'm
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
captivated with remembering the content, making sure I get the
Yes.
content out. I'm speaking to people, but
Hmm.
they're not even my audience because I'm
Hmm.
totally in my head around content.
Hmm.
If you're there, that's okay. Keep after it and grow, right?
Right.
Level two, it's 50-50, content centric, audience centric. I know the
Mhm.
content well enough where I have to think about it, still have to
Mhm.
process it, but I'm also focused in. I'm seeing if somebody's raising their hand. I'm seeing if they're
Mhm.
falling asleep. I'm adjusting things. But then level 3, it's 100% audience centric. Like I know the
Yes.
stuff, the content so well that I'm
Mhm.
totally zeroed in on you as the audience, be it one, be it 1,000, to
Mhm.
make sure the message is received by you.
That's right.
It's that
That's
same type of
absolutely
that
right.
format of just driving to
Yeah.
that point where it really is about everybody else.
That's right. And sometimes the work I do will be it's a little bit of a volley between what's going on in your head, and then we might go to content for a little while.
Mhm.
Even though I tell them it's not really about your content, it's about the connection. We might go to content for a little bit just to strip it down to its basics, right? Forget the script. Give me one sentence. What are you trying to say?
Yep.
And then we can work on that and help a person deliver that simplified message, but to do it in a way that they're in bodily control, they're using good energy, their mindset is positive around that message. And then we can build up that content later. But I want to give them a taste early on of what it means to be delivering the essence and the value in a simple way and focused on the other person.
Mhm.
And once they have that taste and that sensation in their body and their mind, then you can go anywhere.
Yep. That's
It's
awesome.
great.
So we
Hmm.
focused on that first aspect of the mindset. Your second aspect was some of the body work. Go
Absolutely.
a level deeper
Hmm.
on that.
Well, when you have that fear of performance or fear of judgment, the body will respond. I mean, we have very intelligent bodies, and they are hard at work for us, essentially to protect us. So the fear, the trembling, the chaos that you're experiencing is your nervous system's way of responding when there is a perceived danger.
Mhm.
So in your mind, there's a danger because there are people present who are judging you. So your body
Yep.
responds. So there's work to recognize what's going on in the body, what those physiological effects are, what's actually happening, to then use the volume and flow of breath, which is some
Mhm.
work in itself, use that to calm the body, and then use that same volume and flow of breath to energize what you say. And it's another magic moment because the speaker realizes that when they can use one tool for multiple benefits,
Mhm.
they feel that connection between a good message well delivered and a body that's being, it's almost ironic, your body is being soothed by the vibration of your voice,
Hmm.
and it's the thing that you feared that's actually giving you some comfort when you can bring these things together. And it takes some work to get there, but I've seen it happen, unfold before my eyes. I mean, I've traveled that path 2 years ago when I discovered breath work and what it does for speech. But when I see people go through the process and they look at me and say, that felt good,
Mhm.
then it's just, that's a whole other door opened and it's transformative. Yeah.
Good, good. So I do want to focus on the third element for a little bit, more of those technical pieces, right, about
Yes.
pacing and the message, because our listeners, a lot of them, public speaking is selling, right? If they're
Right.
solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, they're constantly selling. So that's one way
Mhm.
that we're speaking publicly. Many of the listeners, though, are actually trying to get on stages and they want to
Mhm.
have those speaking opportunities, be it at a chamber meeting,
Right.
NSA meeting, even up into a big conference. But I want to focus in for a second because I know our listeners are a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. They're in front of a group of buyers. So they're at a company, they've got 3 people with them. They're trying to
Mhm.
present their product or service to get them to buy in. What are the biggest mistakes you've seen them making, and how would you help them navigate to be more effective in that moment?
Mhm. I think the biggest mistake I see is people rushing their message because they are hyper aware that they have limited time and that their audience has limited attention. And that is both cases are often true. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you're given an hour, it's still only an hour, and an hour goes by quickly. But the real fear, I think, is the limited attention span of any listener. I mean, humans these days have what, a 7-second attention span or
Exactly.
less. So you got to get it in there, but the mistake then is made when you just spray people with your content just to get it out, because your listeners are their attention is divided between a lot of things, and everything that comes at them, at all of us really, the content that's coming at us all day long every day is quick. It's coming from everywhere. I mean, when do you actually have a silent moment anymore, right?
Right.
So it's just one more bit of noise.
Mhm.
If you're just spitting it out, rushing it out, just trying to get out there, the perceptual system of people listening to you will tune that out as noise. So instead, you have to vary your signal, and along with that signal, maybe some body language,
Mhm.
so that you're re-engaging your listener every few seconds, actually. And so the tools and tricks for that re-engagement are varied pacing, varied volume, varied intonation, the magical pause. No one uses pauses enough. So, all of these things used strategically and with understanding can continue to re engage your audience that might be tempted to lapse in their attention. So, it's really the antithesis of what most people think. It's not
Right.
a race to get your words out, it's some of these other things used strategically.
Which also goes back to the first two pieces, because if you're not having clarity on the message, clarity on the
Exactly.
intent of the message, where do I want to take
Yes.
them, you're going to miss that
Yes.
piece. I like those little tips there. One other one that I'd heard of a lot that I use a lot is, especially if you're in a small audience with a few people, know their first names and use them as you're
Mm,
speaking.
that's
Hey,
right.
Leslie, if you guys were to use this, hey,
Yes.
Tim, if you guys bought, and pull
Yes.
them in, because when they hear their names, man, they are engaged for the next 60 seconds, totally zoned in.
They are. I mean, people respond to their names because, people call our names from the moment that we're born, but there's another element too. We like to have our names called, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's just a little love someone's throwing your way for just a second there. So your ego's going to respond to that. But I actually gave a mini talk once from stage about the way you say your name. And if you say it with intention, if you say it with purpose, knowing all that it represents, your name represents you, right? So when
Right.
you say your own name, when you introduce yourself, do you do it intentionally? And I would say the same about calling out to someone else. It's not a throwaway. Say
No.
someone's name with intention,
Mhm.
with all of the proper energy directed toward them and the intention of your message, and that's powerful.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Great tips. Great tips. So I want to pivot for a second. I know that you are a part of the National Speakers Association of Georgia. There's state
Yes.
associations as well as the national and international group. I'm a part of
Correct.
NSA Ohio, so
Oh,
I,
yay.
I get that part too. And I know you're president of NSA right now.
President of NSA Georgia.
NSA Georgia,
Yes.
yes. And
Yes.
so a lot of our listeners are trying to get into speaking. They may or may
Yes.
not even know what NSA is.
Okay.
So do two things really quick. Make a pitch for NSA and why they should be a part of it, but then what
Yes.
you are doing in your work as president of NSA Georgia. I know it just started, but what you're going to be doing with
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me the chance to talk about it. The National Speakers Association has a mission to help speakers be better speakers, but also build their speaker businesses. And that second piece is what makes it really unique. So it's not just forming you as a speaker who delivers content, but it's helping you to make the strategic choices to build a business around speaking. And so in NSA Georgia, we definitely carry out that same mission. That's the national mission. But our eyes are on speakers in Georgia, but also some neighboring states that don't have chapters of their own. So we also pull from South Carolina and Tennessee,
Mhm.
and we build up speakers by building up the community of speakers. So we have a lot of events and a lot of stage programming that is specifically designed to do that, to connect people who are in various stages of their business, who are focusing on different elements of their business according to where they are in the development of their business, and giving them tools to build up that business, whether it's to contact the right people, define the audience, use master social media, choose the right CRM. I mean, we cover it all over the course of about a year and then start all over again the next year. So my work as president this year is to set that overarching theme. What do we want to concentrate on so that we can continue to pour into the members to build their, not only their speaking craft, but their speaking business, and to help them build a community with like-minded speakers so that they have resources all around them anytime they need them, those human resources. So that's what we do.
Fantastic. I love it. So
Yeah.
as we start wrapping up here, if our listeners are in a company or they're running their own company and they would want to bring Leslie Gordon in for a workshop, what are those
Yes.
workshops? What are the desired outcomes of those?
Yeah, so my most frequently delivered workshop for team events is the Confident Authentic Speaker Workshop, and it really does dive into those three elements I talked to you about. It's the mindset, body and breath, and speaking strategies, and we go through all of those in whatever time the entity needs. I can do a half day, full day, or I can do a series of events, but they are very interactive.
Mhm.
There's a lot of time for reflection, there's pair work, there's teamwork, and it always culminates in on the spot coaching, where as many people as we have time for can come to the front of the room with content they've been working on all day or throughout the experience, and they get that on the spot coaching with me. And what happens is a glorious thing, because suddenly the whole team is involved, everyone's cheering for each other like mad. It
Mhm.
becomes a great team bonding experience, as you know, as well as building up individual skill, and it's a lot of fun. So that's the one I do most often. As I'm adding on international events and international trainings, I'm seeing more work around accent adjustment to
Mhm.
go along with confident speaking. But that confident speaking bit, those three elements are part of what I do wherever I go, and
Fantastic.
anyone can expect to get that when they work with me. And the best way to find out what those are and how to schedule them is just to reach out to me through my website,
Yeah.
lesliegordonspeech.com.
Yeah, and we'll have all your links in our show notes for this too. So that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Leslie, we finish every show with the same question because we want to be
Mm.
intentional in our leadership and practical. What is something that our listeners can intentionally do today to lead more effectively?
Intentionally pour into others. I think we can all do that.
What is your favorite way to pour into someone?
I like to look into the person beyond their self-doubts, beyond their hesitancies and fears, and find, in my case, find what it is they want to communicate and why they want to connect, and to ease that process for them.
I love
And
that.
that's what I do everywhere I go.
Great, great. Well, Leslie, it's
Yeah.
been great to have you on the Intentional Leader podcast.
Thank
Listeners, I
you.
hope this has been a gift for you. Please do check out her links in the show notes and reach out to her if you need some help. But Leslie, it's been great to get to know you. I look forward to hearing you and seeing you more down the road. Thanks for being on the
Yes.
podcast.
Thank you, Sean. This is great. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Intentional Leader Podcast presented by Reenergize Professional Coaching. Be sure to see the show notes for links to Reenergize Professional Coaching and links to contact our guests. Now, hit that subscribe button so that you are alerted with every new episode of the Intentional Leader Podcast.